And hello, good people of the internet. It is I, Tommy Kelly. This is Adventures in Woo Woo, and welcome to the wonderful Joyce's Quay. We've been here before, but not quite in this location. I am very close to the water. It's coming in almost too quickly, and I suppose it probably is a wee bit too loud to have perfect audio. But I was thinking it'd be a nice kind of background, just have the rolling waves coming in as the sun wonderfully shines across, which you can't see, of course. I'm having the full experience. You're having none of this experience. You're seeing a hill behind me, and if you're on audio only, you're getting none of this. Anyway, if it is too loud, my apologies. So today I wanted to talk a bit around kind of some insights or a few things that have kind of come up for me around the 47 servitor, the dead. As I get a screenshot for the thumbnail. And kind of some new things that have kind of come into my mind about what it could represent. Now, usually, or for the most part, the dead in the 47s isn't really talking about death. In the same way that the death card in tarot isn't really talking about death, apart from the times when it is. But it's more about history and ancestry, and the water getting very close to me at the minute. It's more about human history and learning from the past, including your own history, and the kind of sum total of knowledge that we have developed and uncovered as humans over the whole case of existence, or recorded history, and even back before history was recorded. It still happened, it's still in there somewhere. And just kind of idea that it was coming out that there's maybe a bit more to that than I had seen previously. I was talking recently to Duncan Barford, and he was mentioning that the Dalai Lama, when asked if you could only pick one thing from Buddhism that would survive, everything else would be washed away to the sands of time, what would it be that you'd pick? And he said karma. And it's very interesting. We had a kind of a bit more of a discussion in around karma, myself and Duncan, and that just got me thinking then afterwards about the whole notion of the dead card or servitor from the 47s is a kind of a notion around karma, and that kind of, it's a representation of karma in many ways. Now, we as a kind of spiritual community are kind of have two different views on this notion of karma. We have a kind of very new agey notion of karma, which comes from like cause and effect. You do something good is going to happen to you. You do something bad, and you'll get your just desserts. Karma will come find you and sort you out. And that's not necessarily, strictly isn't what karma in its original form actually meant. And what it just means is action or deed. It's a thing that is done, something that you have done or has happened that has caused then other things to affect other things, in the kind of sense of that, the house that your parents bought or lived in when you were born affects you, or that some of the decisions you've made have affected, to not take this job and take that job has affected your life goal, your life plans, your life thing. And while some good deeds do go unpunished, or do go, or rewarded, it's not necessarily like there's some God sitting there or some spirit going, good deed, okay, here's a good deed back. Bad deed, your computer breaks, or whatever it is, something terrible happens to you. And there's a fear built up in that kind of thing, that you have almost this entire thing that's prevalent in the New Age, just forced positivity, that you have to be happy all the time in case you cause some negative, repercussions to happen to you. Of course, in occult and magic, we have things like the witch's reed, which is, ain it harm none, do's the wilt, with the thing on don't harm people, or it'll come back to you threefolds, the threefold law. And to a large extent, particularly in chaos magic and in different kind of magics and occultisms, we've ignored all of that. We've kind of seen that as a kind of a primitive way of looking things, in a very kind of, I suppose, insulting way, and kind of putting it in together, bundling it in together with that New Age thought of putting out good vibes, man, and you'll get good vibes. With the full knowledge, of course, that shit things happen to bad people, and shit things happen to good people, and good things happen to bad people, and good things happen to good people. And there doesn't seem to be someone sorting it all out, making sure, the ledger is correct. Of course, then people say, well, it can happen over many, many lives. And of course, that's unfalsifiable, so perhaps it does. But that notion of, if you're in a shop and someone drops the wallet and you take it and don't give it back to them, that somehow there's a direct kind of response to that will be some bad luck for you, equivalent or worse. Whereas the deed, of course, is that the karma that is sustained in that is that the person loses their wallet, doesn't get it back, and there's a kind of an echo on into that. Of course, then going back to the dead card and what the kind of insight around that is that, of course, if you were talking about learning from the past, from the ancestors, from your own past, from decisions that have been made, actions that have been had, that essentially is karma. So the dead represents the karma, but not just your individual karma, but the collective karma. And there's kind of a notion that you can have around of it that where you can see an awful lot of things that we ostensibly think are us, or us to deal with, or us to work on, might necessarily even have started with us. And instead, by that kind of a thing, it's not really ours. By that I mean, like, say your father was a very jealous person or a very angry person, whatever, and that was something that then, because you've seen his behaviour growing up, that became part of your kind of aura or your being, and it was kind of, in a sense, handed down. And there's some sort of ancestral lineage of that being handed down. Oh, he's just like his father, he learned that or whatever. And whether that's just purely from psychological seeing it, or whether there is some sort of imprint ancestral, which there seems to be some sort of headway into people thinking that might be some sort of thing that's going on, that you do inherit stuff, traits rather than just physical traits, but like emotional and mental traits. But then you go, well, I have to deal with this jealousy and this anger or whatever. And you go, but it's not even mine because it originated with my father. And we have to assume it didn't originate with my father, or your father, or whoever's father, that it originated somewhere else in the past, possibly his father, his father's father, his mother, his auntie, his second cousin on the third side. And so you kind of go, well, while the karma of the situation is built in that you are now here struggling with jealousy or anger or selfishness or anything, or even positive kind of stuff where your karma is that you've inherited kindness, possibly to a fault. While you can look at it and go, it's not mine, it didn't originate it with me, and it's your kind of responsibility to deal with it now. And as occultists, and as magicians, and as whatever we are, that's what we get to do. We get to heal this ancestral lineage because we can recognize it. Whereas previous, maybe your ancestors didn't recognize it. It was just the way it was. That's the part of being the family. They're an angry family, or whatever. There's a thing, and you just went with it. We can see the kind of cause and the effect. So it started sometime in the past, and it's affecting me now. And this is not to in any way excuse shitty behaviour from other people or from yourself to kind of go, oh, it's just my karma, man. I'm just an angry person because my dad was an angry person. It's not that at all. It's kind of, I think we can see the causative things without excusing the behaviour, or we can understand these things without negating the effects of them. So it's not kind of an excuse, it's not a way of kind of going, oh, well, it's okay that I'm like this because my father was like this, and it's okay that he was like this because his father possibly was like this, or whatever it is. Not to blame fathers, mothers too, sisters, brothers, cousins, aunties, uncles. So it's kind of this notion then of the dead is that while we can also learn from the past, we have to be aware of the karma from the past, or whatever word you choose. You mightn't like karma because of the connotations from the New Age kind of stuff. And that there's an awful lot of stuff that while it didn't come from you, or didn't start with you, or originate with you, is now, because it's there for you, is something that you have to deal with, or should choose to deal with. You get to heal these things. You get to heal the family crap. You get to heal the wounds, the shitty behaviour, the shadows, because you're in a situation to now understand it and look at it and see what it is for. Possibly taking a lot of the blame out of it, but not excusing the behaviour, but understanding it, having compassion for it, having compassion for yourself to have been brought into this kind of karmic lineage. And remember also too that there's so much of these things with regard to the dead and karma that are out of your control, in the sense of there's so many impacts in your life that feel like they're you, but you had no say in, and there's external things such as the country you were born in, and there's a whole karma behind that, a whole history of what that means, what that's gone through, what you've been programmed, in a sense, what you've been kind of instilled in you as a person who is from this country, born in this country, lived in this country, or lived in many countries, whatever it is. But there's a kind of a karma that comes into that is not yours, but it's where you're situated, where you find yourself. And it's out of your control. It had started some other time before you, and it'll definitely be there after. You're not going to heal your country's karma. But that's more kind of a nod to what the dead could be recognising if it comes up in a reading, or if you're working with it, if she's kind of making herself known to you. And also like things like your family situation growing up, as we talked about, you know, the different kind of shadows and roles that come through that, the school that you went to, the particular community, excuse me, the particular community you brought up in, you know, the different kind of religion that you were brought up in. All of these have a karma kind of toll on you that can be seen, in a sense, as you, because that's what you came out of. But also that if you were this exact same person, the I went inside you, the knower, the awareness of the aware, and you were born into a different country, to a different family, you would be different. And, you know, these are kind of the things that the dead can also represent, other than just learning from the past and learning from your mistakes and, you know, looking at the sum total of expertise. That's usually when, you know, the dead comes up in a reading is how I'd read it. So it's like kind of your past, but all of your past, all of the things from the dawn of humanity up until now, including your country, your family, your circumstance, all of these things. So anyway, that's just kind of my thought of around the dead, just kind of an idea that it can also represent this totality of karma. But again, I'm going to reiterate and stress that it's not saying that kind of type of New Age karma, whereas if you do something shitty is going to happen to you. Possibly will, but that's not really exactly what karma is pointing at. It's pointing at when something happens, there is a reaction. There is something that happens. So when you were born into a family, you have all of the history of that family, whether you know it or not, whether it's even known or not, as part of your karma, part of your deed. Actions have happened, it's part of who you are, and an awful lot of it happened so long ago that we can never find the origin of it. I hope that makes sense, and I hope that in some way brings some sort of insight into your readings when the dead comes up, that it could also be this kind of idea. So, good people of the internet, the water is literally at my foot. It's time to go. The sun is still shining brightly, and I feel like I should sit here forever, but of course I can't because I will get wet. Anyway, good people of the internet, may your karma, your future actions lead you to a much better and happier future where you acknowledge the past but don't let it hold you back. And may, of course, you be well, and may your best days be ahead.